Hey, what's that noise? Is that the sound of someone suffering from revenge? Oh, but not just any old revenge. That's the sound of a man suffering from some well-executed passive-aggressive revenge. I'm talking posting fish through your ex's letterbox every single day level revenge. Or collecting dog poop for weeks and throwing it over your annoying neighbor's yard level revenge. Jeez. So yeah, strap in, because we're about to check out even more awesomely passive-aggressive ways people got revenge. Don't mess with Mark. Back in the hazy days of February 2011, college student and entrepreneur Mark Bao realized his expensive MacBook Air had been stolen from his dorm's communal area. With no culprits, he resigned himself to buying a new one. However, being a bit of a tech whiz, Mark had installed a program on his old computer that automatically uploaded all its files to the cloud. So, a few weeks later, when he logged onto this program with his new laptop, he discovered that whoever had stolen his old MacBook was using it, and all their files had been backed up for Mark to see. He found the thief's name on one of them and immediately reported him to the police. But then something else caught Mark's eye. Tucked away in the media folder was a video of what appeared to be someone dancing. Mark clicked on it and was astonished. It was the thief. Oh boy, those are some moves for sure. Seeing a golden opportunity, Mark downloaded the video, logged onto YouTube, and uploaded it with the title, "Don't Steal Computers Belonging to People Who Know How to Use Computers." Reddit quickly picked up the video, and within hours it had thousands of views. Shortly afterwards, the thief handed the stolen laptop into campus police and messaged Mark, apologizing and begging him to take the video down. Well, Mark wasn't very sympathetic, and you can still view all 1 minute and 32 seconds of it on YouTube today, which has been viewed more than 2.5 million times. Let's have one last look. Some real smooth moves there. Smokers are jokers. I'm not a judgmental guy. I once met someone who loved peanut butter and sardine sandwiches, and we're still friends. But that's because he doesn't force his culinary monstrosities onto me. Unfortunately, Reddit user Intrepid Ad once had a very different experience. He lived in an apartment block, and his downstairs neighbors would hang around on their balcony and smoke all night. Which would have been fine if the smoke didn't drift up into Intrepid's ventilation system and stink out his entire apartment. At first, Intrepid politely asked them to use the building's designated smoking area instead. But after weeks of them ignoring him, he decided to take matters into his own hands by purchasing a giant water gun. That night, Intrepid waited in his apartment until it was dark. Sure enough, the familiar rancid smell of smoke came drifting in. But this time, Intrepid was prepared. He quietly tiptoed out onto his own balcony, aimed the water gun down at the smokers below, and unleashed ice-cold liquid vengeance all over them. Immediately, the group started screaming, dropping their cigarettes in panic. Intrepid darted back into his apartment, stifling his laughter. The next day, he saw them stood outside the building and cheerfully said hi. Lo and behold, none of them echoed his cheeriness. In fact, they started accusing him. But Intrepid just denied the accusations, asked if they were sure it wasn't raining, and went on his way. Ha! Don't you think of going anywhere, though, other than down to those like and subscribe buttons, of course. That way you'll never miss another part of this series, or any of my other videos for that matter. Now where were we? Oh yeah, more revenge. Little person, big revenge. No matter what shape or size you are, everybody should be treated equally. That being said, it doesn't always happen. Reddit user Wenmilto is a man with dwarfism, a genetic condition resulting in short stature. So when he's out in public, he'll sometimes draw attention, mostly from inquisitive children. Usually their parents will awkwardly drag them away and reprimand them, which Wenmilto understands even if it saddens him a little bit. But one day, as he was walking down the sidewalk, he passed a mom and her young child. The kid was throwing a tantrum over something. So far, so normal. However, when Milto suddenly realized she'd started pointing at him. Unbelievably, she was telling her child that he was one of Santa's elves and that he was watching them. If they didn't behave, he'd tell Santa on them and they wouldn't get any gifts for Christmas. Well, one thing was true. When Milto was watching, and he wasn't happy. One of Santa's elves? Suppressing the anger, he was about to move on when he noticed the kid's name on a keyring on their backpack and a devious plan sprang to mind. He walked over to the crying kid, smiled, and said, "It's okay, Hunter. You're already on the nice list. Santa's getting you an iPad for Christmas." Just like that, Hunter's tantrum ended. His mom, on the other hand, looked like she was about to throw one. The pecking order. When you're on vacation, there's nothing better than chilling on the beach, especially if you've got the whole place to yourself. But what if, just as you were settling down, a couple turned up and sat right in front of you? I mean, sure, they're not technically doing anything wrong, but come on, there's a whole beach right there. Well, TikTok user Madison3Gooch and her family were put in this exact situation in the summer of 2022. Their response? Take a look. Okay, but what's throwing a handful of chips behind them gonna achieve? Turns out, a lot. Almost immediately, a flock of ravenous birds descended on the obtrusive couple and went to town on those potato chips. The couple quickly moved and Madison's family got their personal space back. Genius. Though I can't help but feel if I'd have tried this, I'd have been caught straight away and attacked with a plastic shovel or something. Kick in the bucket. From school through to working a 9 to 5, the people we have to spend every weekday with are often the same ones we'd avoid if we saw them in the street. Reddit user OKPresent6508 knows this all too well. He's a construction worker, and on his lunch break he sits with his coworkers outside in the foreman's hut. He always used to use the same bucket for a seat, only one day one of his coworkers decided it'd be really funny to kick the bucket as hard as they could just before he sat down. It flew across the room and our guy had to traipse over and pick it back up, much to the hilarity of everybody else. The first couple of times it happened, okay, everybody found it funny. But after the 7th time, he'd had enough. So while he was on his own, OK took his usual bucket, cut out the bottom, and placed it back on the floor. Then he filled it to the brim with nuts and bolts, put the lid back on, and went back to work. Later that day, everybody went to lunch as usual, and, as usual, annoying bucket kicker went to do what he does best. Except this time his foot collided with the bucket, and a loud crunch made him leap back, startled. Annoyed that he'd failed at kicking it across the room, bucket kicker picked it up to launch it with his arms, but as soon as he did, all the nuts and bolts came pouring out all over the floor. It was an absolute mess. OK smirked, pulled out a camping chair he'd brought in, and said, "Gonna tidy that up?" This time everybody was laughing, apart from annoying bucket kicker. Now think about this. What do you do when you're on public transport, cleaning your house, or you generally just can't stare at a screen? Do you still want to learn amazing facts and have your mind blown? Well, I've got the solution. Be Amazed is now available in podcast form. Look up Be Amazed on all major podcast platforms. Follow us now on the podcast platform of your choice, and you'll have the chance to win $500 of Amazon vouchers. We're giving $100 vouchers away to 5 lucky winners. All you need to do is slide into my DMs on Facebook or Instagram with a screenshot showing that you follow the Be Amazed podcast and left a top rating. Hurry, the competition ends on the 30th of September. Winners will be chosen at random and announced via our Facebook page. Papa's whiffy wrath. The Bible teaches us to love thy neighbor. But what if thy neighbor lets his dog run all over your lawn and do great big number 2s on it? Because that's exactly the situation Redditor Love to Read 5000's grandpa found himself in some time ago. Old Gramps had caught the dog in the act multiple times, and every time he'd gone outside and yelled at the owner to control it. Yet it happened again and again, and again. Until one day, Grandpa stopped going outside and yelling. Instead, he started going out after the dog had left and picking up the brown butt nuggets himself. You might think he'd given up then, but oh no, he'd far from given up. After about a month, his granddaughter was nearby when she noticed her grandpa carrying a 5-gallon paint bucket across the street towards his neighbor, who was just taking his dog outside. When Gramps got there, he stopped on his neighbor's yard, stared him dead in the eyes, and tipped out the contents of the bucket. His neighbor gasped and recoiled in horror. It was poop! But not just any old poop, the same poop the neighbor's dog had been leaving in his yard for the last month. And you can bet it stank. Funnily enough, his granddaughter never saw any poop on her grandpa's lawn again after that. Charmander. Pokemon. It's a card game, a TV show, a video game, pretty much an empire at this point. Why? Because it has a legion of fans so loyal, they'll do anything to keep on catching them all. And I do mean anything. One kid found this out the hard way back in 2017. His 2 older brothers were sat in the living room laying their collection of cards out on the floor and comparing them. However, the younger sibling was more interested in grabbing the cards and throwing them around the room than the game itself. Now, what did I tell you about Pokemon fans? Yeah, they're ruthless, and understandably, these ones didn't take kindly to having their fun ruined. So their response was to, well, take a look. Yep, they duct taped their brother to a chair. Well, I don't reckon he messed with his siblings' cards ever again after that. Dented marriage. When you're a kid, there's nothing more fun than going over to your friend's house for a play date. Unless, of course, they have parents from hell. This was exactly the situation single mom Ciso realized her daughter was in back in 2022. Ciso had never liked either of her daughter's friends' parents. The dad, Mike, seemed sleazy, and the mom, Sharon, was judgmental, arrogant, and rude. But her daughter got on well with theirs, so she let her go round for playdates. That is until one day her daughter came home from her latest playdate crying. She was a picky eater, and apparently Sharon had told her off for bringing her own food that day. Not only that, but she'd also been aggressively trying to get Ciso's daughter to attend Sunday school with her, despite neither Ciso nor her daughter being religious. Well, Ciso didn't take kindly to this. She called Sharon, and after a heated debate, the 2 parents agreed to only hold playdates at Ciso's house from now on. You think that'd be it, right? Oh boy. The next weekend came and Sharon arrived at the door with her daughter, but as soon as Ciso opened the door, the other mother came storming in and launched into an angry tirade. Apparently, because Ciso was a single mom, she obviously couldn't make good decisions and was a bad influence on both their daughters, something she said clearly in front of everybody. Then she grabbed her daughter and left, slamming the door behind her. Well, Ciso took that as a declaration of war. That night, she made a fake Facebook account posing as an attractive young woman and started messaging Sharon's husband, Mike. Turns out he was just as sleazy as she'd thought. Mike immediately responded, flirting at first, but quickly implying he wanted, more than just a chat. Bingo! Ciso screenshotted the whole conversation and sent it over to Sharon. Sharon didn't reply, but the next morning, Ciso saw Mike storming out of the house with a suitcase and recklessly driving off. He came back a couple of days later, so Ciso hadn't destroyed their marriage, but she'd certainly put a dent in it. Phooey, there's a double moral to this one. Don't be a judgmental douchebag, and don't be a sleazebag. Capiche? Fishy surprise. Going through a breakup sucks, but it's even worse when you're the one that's getting broken up with. After being on the wrong end of a particularly bad breakup, British TikToker Katie Beresford decided that rather than just move on, she needed to take revenge. How, you ask? Well, just watch. Yep, she posted a raw fish through her ex's door, and not just once, every single day, for who knows how long. Now, we don't know exactly what her ex did, but the sheer level of commitment here does seem a little fishy, doesn't it? Well, I did a little more digging, and it turns out that's because it is. Katie didn't actually post a fish every day, she just said that for the TikTok cloud. She did post it the once, though. I guess after that she realized there's plenty more fish in the sea. toot for tat. There's a very wise, very old saying. How does it go again? Oh yeah, farts are funny no matter what age you are. But they can also be the most horrific things a human can ever experience, something Redditor user Gonzo is Sexy knows all too well. Gonzo used to work in an office where she got along with almost everyone, apart from one co-worker called Jasmine. Jasmine would go out of her way to tell Gonzo how much she didn't like her. Apparently, she was too chubby, too quiet, too everything. So one day, in an attempt to make amends, Gonzo brought her a 4-leaf clover. Admittedly, this seems a little odd, but she meant it as a nice gesture. Jasmine's response? She had a huge hissy fit in the middle of the office and screamed that she's afraid of plants. Okay. Well, that did it for Gonzo. It just so happens she has a sensitive stomach and certain foods make her bowels, less than savory. So when she got home, she ate a load of those exact foods. The next day, she walked past Jasmine's seat and let out the deadliest, stinkiest fart you could imagine. And she kept doing it every time she got up. Not just for the day, for the whole week. Over and over again, she'd walk past, and over again, she'd launch her dastardly bowel bombs, and it was an utter ass-pocalypse. Amazingly, Jasmine never once reacted to the onslaught, but Gonzo knew she must have smelt them. It was impossible not to. Put it this way, by the end of that week, Jasmine certainly didn't smell like flowers. 4 cheese, extra scales. Nobody likes a thief, but if you've ever shared a college dorm, you'll know they're a food thief's favorite hunting ground. But back in 2016, one British student we'll call Sarah had a particularly bad roomie. They wouldn't just steal her food, they'd take a bite or two before putting her food back in the fridge. The final straw came when Sarah found a single, huge bite taken out of her brand new block of cheese. That was it. Seething, our wrong dormie hatched a devious plan to get her revenge. Step 1, buy a takeout pizza. Step 2, carefully slice off the toppings of a few pizza slices. Now, step 3 is where it gets interesting and incredibly gross. It just so happens that earlier in the day, Sarah had spotted a couple of dead lizards on the side of the road near where she lived. So she went back, picked them up, and, well, I bet you can guess where she put them. Right inside the pizza. Blech. Heat those bad boys up in the microwave, and boom! The cheese sealed in our little friends, and it was impossible to tell anything was amiss. All that was left to do was put the slices in the fridge and wait. The next morning, Sarah eagerly crept down into the kitchen, and sure enough, there was the pizza box lying open on the counter. One slice had been completely consumed, and the second slice was half-eaten with a gruesome bit of lizard hanging from one side of it. Yeah! Sarah then posted a note on the fridge with pictures of the entire process, revealing to the food thief they'd eaten a dead lizard. Man, I don't even know what to say about this one. I guess revenge is a dish best served scaly. Trained for vengeance. If you've ever been on a busy train, you'll know the importance of securing a seat early on. Nobody wants to be stood up for a long trip. Reddit user Magnus40 knew this all too well, so he booked a seat for his 4-hour journey from Edinburgh to London well in advance. When he boarded his train, however, he realized somebody was sat in his seat. And not just any seat, a window seat with a table. Prime real estate in terms of trains. He asked the man to move, but he rudely refused. So Magnus got the attention of the ticket collector. The ticket collector asked the man this time, but again he refused. So what now? Asked Magnus. The ticket collector shrugged and said, "You'll have to find another seat. I can't move him, and the police won't turn up just to move someone out of a seat." This really annoyed Magnus. The regular train cars were so full there weren't any other seats to take. "Fine," he said. "I'm going to sit in first class." He grabbed his things and made to leave when the ticket collector shouted, "You can't do that! You don't have a booking for first class!" Well, Magnus knew exactly what to say to that. You could call the police, but apparently they won't turn up just to move someone out of a seat. And with that, he walked off into the first-class carriage, took a seat, and had one of the best train journeys of his life. Now that's some first-class revenge. Just a joke? Whether you're working in an office or studying at school, the day-to-day grind can be dull. So what better way to spruce things up than with a funny, harmless prank? But sometimes people take it too far, and when they do, they might get something a whole lot worse back in revenge. Apparently, according to an old forum post from 2007, a colleague at a call center stole another worker's precious Twinkie from his lunchbox. How did the wronged party respond? Well, they went to great lengths to ensure it never happened again. How? By buying a butt-ton of Twinkies and filling the offender's entire cubicle with them. Of course! Damn, it's a work of art. In all honesty, though, this entire story is probably fake. For a start, if I zoom in, are those the edges of cardboard boxes I see? Looks like this cubicle has been filled with boxes and the Twinkies have been stuck on the sides on the top to make this prank look a lot sweeter than it is. Real or not though, I definitely wouldn't want to be the victim of this next act of revenge. Back in 2006, Reddit user Steve Heaves was a student in a shared accommodation block which loved to play pranks on the resident advisor. One day they taped a mattress to his door thinking they'd really outdone themselves. But the advisor came down later and completely dismissed their prank, calling it lame and saying he'd seen way worse during his time there. Steve and his pals decided this disrespect of their prank would not stand, and so responded with some seriously grotesque retaliation. All of them proceeded to shave down there, gather the trimmings, and then stuck the hair on the advisor's doorknob. When the advisor eventually returned, he grabbed the doorknob without looking, and most of them came off in his hand. Blech. I hope that advisor wasn't squeamish because there's not enough therapy in the world that would help me get over touching that furry horror show. Cart attack. Nothing annoys me more than people who are rude to customer service staff, and Reddit user A Bear Sniffed My Head obviously feels the same way. When he saw a couple of middle-aged women mistreating a young Walmart store assistant, he went to a whole new level to teach them a lesson. The two women were blocking the store assistant's way with their grocery-laden shopping carts and wouldn't move after being politely asked to do so. Instead, they sneered down at the young assistant and told her to find another way. Well, Bear wasn't going to stand for that. He casually walked over, grabbed one of the snooty women's carts, and started running off with it at full pelt. It took a moment for the woman to react, but then they bolted straight after him. A wild race ensued, with Bear dashing down the aisles and swerving other shoppers in a bid to escape the enraged women, and he did. Just as he got to the opposite end of the store, he let go, turned on his heel, and ran back to his own cart. But he didn't stop there, oh no. It just so happened that the other woman's cart was near his. She'd left it abandoned in her efforts to give chase. Jackpot! Bear grabbed both her cart and his own and went off to the camping section, where she'd never think to look. Then he took some of her groceries, put them in his own cart, and left hers there. He never saw either woman again or the worker he'd avenged. Until about a year later, that is. Bear was sat in a restaurant with his family when he recognized one of the waitresses serving him. It was the worker from Walmart. She recognized him too and excitedly told him what had happened after he'd left that fateful day. Apparently, the two rude women had complained to the manager and demanded that Bear be arrested. However, the worker told her manager what really happened. Safe to say, no police were called. The two women stormed off and the whole story became Walmart legend. So there you have it. Respect customer service staff or you'll have your cart stolen by a wild grocery pinching vigilante named Bear. Probably. Maybe. Automobile anarchy. We've all witnessed at least one person who's terrible at parking. Some are just bad drivers, but others are intentional douchebags. But bad parking doesn't always go unpunished. Take the owner of this car. They'd been told they couldn't park here because it's a private company space, but they arrogantly insisted on taking it anyway. Well, sure, but that doesn't mean you'll ever be able to leave it again. Yep. The guy they'd spoken so arrogantly to just so happened to be a dab hand at scaffolding. Ha! Oh, and you know who else you shouldn't annoy? Farmers. This dude obviously didn't get the memo when he chose to block one of their driveways to avoid a parking fee. He got a lot more than a fee though when said farmer in retaliation threw a load of cow manure all over his truck. Phooey. There you have it. Bad parking stinks. A woman scorned. They say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and after hearing the absolutely insane story I'm about to tell you, I think you'll agree. Back in 2015, Laura Arnold from Birmingham, UK, became suspicious when her husband Craig told her he was going away on a 2-week business trip to New York. The trip itself wasn't out of the ordinary, but when he told her he seemed nervous as if he was hiding something. So she took a look at his phone and found out he'd been chatting to a woman over there who was intending to give him a, warm welcome. Well, Laura wasn't gonna let that slide. However, rather than confront her husband, she acted like everything was fine and wished him a good trip as he left. As soon as they parted ways, though, the smile left her face and she jumped into action. Now, because her parents had helped them with the deposit and mortgage for their house and nothing had come from Craig, she didn't need Craig's permission to list it for sale. You can probably see where this is going. Within the day, Laura had listed their house on a website specializing in selling homes fast, and they pulled through. Unbelievably, the whole process was over within 2 weeks. Sarah sold the place to be used as a student house, took her things, and left, though she made sure to leave all of her husband's possessions in there, included as fixtures and fittings. When Craig returned from his business trip, he got the shock of a lifetime. His key didn't fit in the lock, and after ringing the doorbell, he was greeted by a group of fresh-faced students. No amount of confused arguing could achieve anything. The papers were signed and the legalities were all sorted. What happened next has been kept quiet, though I imagine there was an incredibly heated phone call between the unhappily married couple. As for Sarah's final words on the matter, simply, things aren't great between us at the moment. Haha, yeah, I bet. Alright, that just about brings us crashing and burning to the end of the video. Which of these vengeful tales did you find the craziest? And have you ever taken revenge on someone in such a wildly passive-aggressive way that it could belong in the next installment of this series? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.